Yesterday was a very active day with severe weather that moved through North Dakota and parts of the northern high plains with a derecho possible moving through with 100-mile-per-hour wind gusts. We also had flash flood emergency down here in Alabama last night. So today's forecast, severe weather, has shifted down to the central plains, and we're going to take you into that forecast next. So looking into severe risk for today, we have a slight risk stretching gently from Denver to parts of Nebraska to through North Platte down to Parsons, Kansas as well through Garden City with a larger slight risk all the way up into parts of Minnesota and down towards Lubbock, Texas, and a small marginal risk up here in North Dakota and Montana, as well as a marginal risk in the St. Louis, Nashville area. This risk is maximized here with the hail risk out to the western area, just to the east of Denver, towards Garden City, Kansas, with a larger marginal risk and slight risk. So within the slight risk, 15% chance of hail 2-inch in diameter. Now we also have a SIG 1 hatching risk for 75-mile-per-hour wind gusts within this area. It extends a little bit further to the east, almost all the way to southeast Kansas, just to the east of Denver. Even over the Denver area, we have 15% winds outside the hatch risk. Also, chance of 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts in the mid-Mississippi Valley threat as well. So during the day today, there's going to be a surface low developing here along the Dryline / boundary here. Okay, so this is partially what's going to drive our severe weather threat today, and this is the dew points associated with this. And you see 70-degree dew points back all the way back towards the Denver area almost. And now this is pretty early in the morning, like 7 a.m. So you see that surface low gently moves to the southeast. Dew points in the Denver area still are pretty low here. Dew points forecast to be in the 40s. So any storms that do fire will likely be elevated in nature. Hail and wind threat, tornado threat in the Denver area specifically will be quite low. This is 4 p.m. Mountain Time. Okay, further to the east, especially along with this low develops, it looks relatively strong here. We could really have potential for some rotating updrafts today. So is that low as it gets into the evening hour? You see how it kind of backs up, and you have this boundary site to the south here with some dew points rising again in the Denver area, likely due to diurnal conditions here. So that it looks like that low is more focused on the dry line. You have more of another low, maybe a surface low developing up here as well towards Sioux Falls, Fargo as well. So that's one of the factors that's driving our severe weather threat for today. The surface low there and dew points and the backing of the winds here as well. So one factor we look at with severe weather probabilities is CAPE, convective available potential energy. Let's go to the time frame ranges here, 2, 3, 4 p.m. See CAPE values 4 or 5,000 joules per kilogram. And now if we look at the lower levels as far as the low-level jet, which is an important factor when we talk about tornado genesis here. A low-level jet to start the morning is at 850 millibars. That's close to the surface. You see the darker colors here indicate a surface low this morning in the Kansas area. Okay, becomes kind of diffuse. You see a surface cyclone here, not that greatly defined, but it's there nonetheless. You see the circulation generally this way, upslope storms that fire in this area, likely on a dry line here. That's what's partially driving our threat today. Supercells are definitely possible today, 3 p.m. Mountain Time. This is 5 p.m. Eastern. You see the values approaching 13 here in parts of Kansas today. So that's where your greatest threat for supercells is, Kansas, Oklahoma City, and parts of Missouri. I wouldn't be surprised we get some form of higher terrain out here. As the storm moves to the south and east, you see the 9 p.m., the supercell composite is almost at 17 here. That's a very high values up towards Salina, Kansas, Oklahoma City. And there's some maximized values up here in North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota as well, and points eastward and into the Mississippi Valley, Missouri here, and Iowa also. Wow, 20 right here. So now let's review the future radar for impacts and timing. So for our threat area today, this is 11 a.m. HRRR output. You see storms start to fire in higher terrain of Wyoming and Colorado here. They come off the higher terrain and move to the east. This is 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Maybe some storms down here in Texas as well, but 6 p.m., 7 p.m. storms move to the east here, but some embedded storms here. Also, maybe some supercells developing over Salina and McPherson. and they move to the east and maybe redevelop, and also a couple different maybe MCSs here, Mesoscale Convective Systems, moving to the east as well. Multiple rounds of storms maybe moving through Kansas City area in the overnight hours and the Nashville area as well. Now I'm going to go to the StormNet site and show you those probabilities as well. It's a good tool to use for that. Here are the StormNet probabilities for hail. This site is very good at showing probabilities for different severe parameters, right? And so there's a hail risk. It doesn't distinguish between 1, 2 inch hail. This is just a greater than 1 inch hail probability. So let's look at June 8th today, which is today between 5 and 6 p.m. Eastern. So it doesn't have a time zone here either. So it doesn't know my location here. So, right, so it's the probabilities, right? So we're thinking 50% almost probabilities of hail as it comes off the front range, generally in the Boulder, Denver area, and parts of Kansas as well. Just a general area of hail at this point. But the focused area is back to the west here. That moves to the south and east in the parts of Colorado between 8 and 9 p.m. Eastern. So this is about 6 p.m. Central or so. Another focus line moving through Kansas. And this other line of potential hail moves to the north and east to Kansas and Nebraska as well in the overnight hours, and maybe continues here. Maybe a small hail risk in the morning hours up to the north here. Going to wind risk, time frame of interest. Here we are in Colorado, right? As those storms come off the front range, you have our highest probabilities up into Nebraska and up towards and down towards the Salina area. Now this denotes the possibility of 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts, okay, or higher. So highest probabilities in North Platte, Nebraska area, and down towards Kansas area as well. And we're talking 7, 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m. overnight hours. The threat continues up here into Nebraska near Grand Island, and maybe reforms in the morning hours back to the west here along the Kansas-Nebraska border. Tornado risk quite low today. Right off the front range, we do have the possibility of tornadoes here, although quite low. I mean, the percentages are less than 10% here. So still not a zero risk, but hence the small tornado risk for today. And you have just some barely shading here as we get into the evening hours in the Central Plains, and not much on the map after that. So tornado threat is the lowest threat today. Largest threat is the potential for 2-inch hail and 75-mile-per-hour wind gusts.